Good afternoon. So I've got a little different place this year. When Carrie, Fred, and I were talking about the agenda and how it was coming together, and I said, you know what, I'll back clean up. That's what I'll do. Because you've got, you've heard from everybody now as far as the senior leadership group, right? You've got, marketing all taken care of. You've heard from Barry and Jane. You've heard from Ecom. You've heard from the merchants. It's kind of like we're going through the whole food chain, right? You've heard from the DCs. So I'm going to just go through some of the standard slides that I normally do to talk about Christmas, talk about holiday, which is actually split between third and fourth quarter. It's really weird because, November is in third quarter and then December's in fourth quarter. And actually, I've come up with a new term called fifth quarter, which is January and February. Okay, so let's go through the agenda real quick. So I do want to go through some year-to-date results. I'm a numbers girl. I can't give you numbers, but I'm going to give you some numbers. Focus on holiday, the October through December, because that is so critical, even though that spans a couple of financial quarters. As I mentioned, a sneak peek at Q5, January and February. Got a lot of great feedback, so there is a pop quiz, so please get your pen and paper ready, and that'll be ready for your teams when you go back as well, and I will give you off camera the answers also. And then I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about gearing up for growth, some takeaways after the couple of days here together, okay? So percent to the total store, this is how we were budgeted versus last year. Really the only two numbers that are important is that we did anticipate some headwinds in beverage. Okay, so we did plan them down slightly as their percentage to the total store, with furniture picking it up, because we knew that we left some money on the table, specifically in outdoor, and then we also had some really great trends going on in dining. But in general, the balance of the store was relatively the same as what we've been seeing. At this point, we are talking minor adjustments, okay, to the mix. So how did we do? Well, let's focus in on furniture and beverage again. Furniture was a little worse than what we had anticipated. Y'all know why. It's, 21,000 or something new locations selling beverage. I mean, it's huge. It is bloody out there, both on a competition number of doors as well as price points. So, for us, beverage is still going to be a work in progress with how to solve it. Okay, furniture did even better. As you all know, again, we had a great outdoor season. Dining is rocking, living is back. It's just doing really, really well. Not to go without mention, though, is the non-furniture home areas. Jewelry, accessories, even artists and gift, paper and cards. I mean, it's just really, really strong. And of course, we know that business is really high margin as well. So even though we did miss some numbers in specific areas, this mix works for us. We know that. Okay, so just as a reminder, as far as, what is high margin mix and low margin mix, if there is an area that you run the risk of running some softness on the top line, let it be a low margin area, because our first 5 months of the year, so far so good. Sitting on a big pile of cash, okay? Okay. But we have some challenges ahead, okay? And I'm always one to tell you guys maybe what you don't want to hear, but what you need to know, okay? Because we've got some great, wind at our back at this point, but we have a couple of things that are really things consciously that we have to take into account. First of all, we continue to have a value-based customer, okay? She's looking for a deal. We know when traffic starts to get a little tough, we got to give her a reason to come in. So we are going to be continuing to face that. No real change, but it hasn't gone away, certainly. Increase in competition. That is really true in the beverage world. That's not going away anytime soon. One that nobody's really talked about yet, we're a little short on new door count versus the budget. Okay, budget was built with 10 new doors. We're not there yet. We have some reloads, but we don't have all the new doors. Budget's not changing, so that means everybody's got to step it up a little bit. And then, of course, all of this kind of rolls into some margin pressure, because, again, promotional efforts to drive traffic and the coupon redemption, as well as then the relaunch of WME 2.0, is going to put some pressures on margin. So that's what we're all up against. But we're always good for a challenge, right? Okay, let's talk about the store, October through December. Now, I am talking forecast. This is different than budget. We are recognizing some of the headwinds that we're facing in beverage, okay? So this is life as we believe it today, okay? We are still looking then for beverage to be lighter than last year, that the forecasted comp will be below the company average. See, I'm not quoting any numbers, but I'm giving you some general direction, okay? Food, right about where we found it last year. Non-furniture home is where we're really going to see the gains, okay? And in all of those decor areas that you got to see yesterday, not just seasonal, but in all of the things that you're seeing right now, Glasgow Fog, all of the new sets along the way. And the great thing about that, that's got higher than average margin attached with it. Okay, dollar investments, average store, not real big differences to last year. This is beginning of each month. You'll see just a tad little drop there in the 1st of November, 1st of December. Robert mentioned it. Life of Pi, Africa, lots of money, not so much in sales. So we're going to plow that back into some other more productive inventory. I do want to highlight the fact, though, too, that right now your inventories have never been healthier. As of the end of last month, we posted a 1.8% aged inventory. That is the lowest in the company's history. Okay. Majority of the ownership during that time period is in core. Okay, we give a lot of love and a lot of attention and a lot of sexy sprinkles to both fashion and seasonal during this time. It is really important for the emotional connection in the store, but the workhorse that's going to pay the bills is all in core. So my motto for that, don't ignore the core. Okay, simple enough. As you guys call it, remix magic. This was just to take a look really quick at the percentages as far as how sales and margin and units and transaction all break out in the first part of the year. As we move into the back part of the year, non-furniture, home, and food is, almost 75% of your sales. It's almost 80% of your units, actually almost 90% of your unit sales, and actually those two combined, 80% of our buyer margin dollars are out of those two areas. So as much heartburn as we're given to beverage right now, beverage is less than 6% of our total buyer margin dollars during this time of year, okay? And I know Matt is like freaking out as I say that, but let's really worry about what's going to pay the bills. Okay, because we cannot chase the promotional efforts of these folks that are running beverage at losing margins, right? I mean, this is the old Clicquot days, the big orange monster. I was having a flashback to like 8 years ago when there were people that aren't here anymore used to tell me about the fact that if we sold more, we'd make money. You cannot sell more stuff under cost and make money. That math just doesn't work, okay? So this is what's going to pay the bills. Okay. Furniture, as we talked about last year, still really important. An average week in furniture in November and December, especially December, an average week of furniture in December is no different than right now. It's just the fact that everything else moves up around it. Okay. But let's keep in mind it's only 1% of your unit sales and slightly less than 3% of your total transactions. Okay. One last thing before we leave this slide. Focus in on that transaction, and I know Matt mentioned it, we are moving a hell of a lot of units at this time of year, right? 2/3 of your transactions are going to have food or non-furniture home on them. So keep that in mind. Okay, as I'm calling it, the holiday calendar cha-cha. Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay, so Halloween, we got a slight move between Wednesday and Thursday. That's probably going to go and push more parties into that following weekend. One of the things that we're seeing right now with holidays, that customer is waiting later and later and later. She can only handle one holiday at a time. That's something else that we've seen. So, come October, she's only interested in pumpkins, and then you have to wait till November to talk about turkeys and, et cetera, et cetera. So this probably will mean that most of your Halloween business will literally come the week of Halloween, okay? Thanksgiving. Oh, this one's a bad one, because the relationship between Thanksgiving and Christmas tightens up. Last year, the time period between Thanksgiving and Christmas was the longest, and it felt like, that second holiday was never going to come. This year, it's the tightest it can go, okay? But we do have a shift in the fiscal weeks. And, oh, by the way, Thanksgiving week is the end of third quarter. Not like it's really important or anything. Okay, Hanukkah. Even though it only moves 1 week, the date is emotionally very different. It's moving from, I believe, the first night is the 8th of December last year to the 27th this year. Okay, it's right there on the back end of Thanksgiving. So, Hanukkah is really turning into a harvest festival rather than, like almost a Christmassy, season. We have, as I mentioned, one less week between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then Christmas moves from Tuesday to Wednesday. We know that each one of those days is nearly a $10 million day, so that shifts some business out of what was 42 and into 43. So here's kind of what it looks like. This is total volume from week to week. We love that week 42, right? And then the diehard down. You see that little dip in the light pink in 43. That's with the shift in Christmas. But this graph really just didn't do it for me. It went, yeah, duh. We build for Christmas. We got a blip in Thanksgiving. You see the timing change. So let's look at what the actual comp numbers are going to look like. Okay. So this is where, yeah, exactly, Larry, thank you for the funny face, because this is when, I go ahead and I give you guys the daily budgets, I build the daily budgets, I get out, my crystal ball, and I try to take a look at it. I go back historically and try to pick a spot down the middle. These individual comps and the comps by day, it's going to be all over the board. So the main thing is that we just have to understand that there are certain weeks that are going to be down or less good, and it's going to be because of a calendar shift. Okay, so as I send out the dailies, make sure that you're emotionally covering them with your team. Okay, Thanksgiving ramp. Thanksgiving comes, Christmas comes, not a big deal, but the important thing here is that there will be a higher gap going into that Thursday. That is my great prediction because, again, customers are waiting later and later and later, and even though Thanksgiving is still on a Thursday, she's going to wait until that week, always does. And it's getting worse. Okay, Christmas, though, this one was a little trickier because, as I mentioned, each one of those days is probably going to be corporately, $9.5 to $10 million. There's an extra day. So when you just think about how the customer is reacting these days, and, okay, she's going to go into that last weekend, and she's going to go, okay, I have until the last weekend. It's about, what would that be date-wise, like, 20th or so. That almost feels like it's another week until Christmas. And then she's going to get around to about Tuesday and go crap and then, come rushing into the store. So where we had the drop-off last year, where that weekend was really the big weekend because you only had one more full day and then you had Christmas Eve, this is going to pull it a little late. So we're going to have, I would anticipate, very, very big Monday, Tuesday business. Okay. So just a quick sneak peek, as I mentioned, with Q5. The main thing here is, again, we're anticipating a little softer than last year beverage penetration, a little bit more in furniture. Some of that is driven by the fact that we're going to launch some early outdoor. So we'll see how that rolls. Where are we now? A year ago, I stood before you and I said, okay, that whole merger thing, forget about it, right? Because we wanted to try to keep you guys out of any headache, heartburn that corporately we might be going through. I think as an organization, we've done a pretty good job of that. Our balance sheet has never been better. We have that big brother with a big bat when it comes to getting real estate done. We've leveraged costs. We've gone through some integration. But here we are. We're still cost plus world market. We still have a brand. I think all of our team building activities this week, we still have a team, and the more and more that I'm working with teams back east, we still got the best team, okay? But yeah. So I kind of, wanted to kind of have us all look back. I'm quickly approaching 8 years here, and there was a phase that was just plain survive. I mean, we had to focus on traffic and profitability. We never took anything for granted. We instituted disciplines, filters, the 4 pillars, but most of all, we stayed scrappy, right? Because we just had to get it done. There was not a choice. We were going to, if we were going to go down, we were going to go down fighting and swinging and scratching and spitting, and guess what? We didn't go down, did we? Hell no. We moved on from survive to thrive. We figured out how to make money. We got back to profitability a year ahead of time. 2010 was a total kick-ass year. That was great. We remixed the 4 walls. We figured out how it was going to do. Granted, beverage is still a work in progress. Can't be totally done, right? And then the other thing that really came through that I don't know if everybody really fully understands is that with very little additional capital or money, because I mean we were pretty much a bake sale and a car wash, right? Is that we re-leveraged marketing dollars. Okay, we've cut back on tab pages. We all know that newspapers are dying. And John and his team re-leveraged those dollars into magazines, into some of these other things that Bed Bath has brought along to us. And again, with relatively minor amounts of spend, we are getting new customers. We've always talked about we have to do these other things. Well, now we're doing those other things. If you remember, between the magazines and the new movers, 40% of those people are new customers. Right? We've always said there's those 2 customers, the ones that know us and love us and the ones that don't know about us yet. Okay? He's finding us new customers. That's big breakthroughs there. The tiering and testing, Robert talked about that. We're not going to carry massive amounts more of inventory. That's just not an appropriate use of cash. Okay? We can take calculated risks. Absolutely, we will continue to do that. But what we need to do is keep working better with what we do, and hopefully then, be able to leverage where you guys can spend payroll where it really counts, which is on the sales floor, and not handling additional goods or marking stuff down. E-com, Jason has relaunched the site. Again, another Band-Aid and chewing gum approach. I think it looks fabulous. It's brand appropriate. We're running him like a store, and he's bringing a lot to the table. The new things that are just coming up online now as far as, buy online, pick up in store, ultimately buy online, ship to store. Yeah, I mean, it's just the world is endless out there. I mean, I love fueling them goods. The challenge that we do have, though, with regard to e-com is not everything is going to sell on e-com the way that it does in a store. We're still underpenetrated in food on e-com. They are still primarily a furniture and larger ticket home decor store, if you will. So we're still trying to solve for that. It's not because the goods aren't available, it's just that's not what the customer is responding to. But, relaunching that and having that brand appropriate, and the default now when we're building assortments is that the item goes on the web. The default used to be it had to earn its way on there, and now the default is it's there. That store will become your infinite back room. Okay? We will become seamless to the customer, and that's very, very exciting. And then last but not least, we created WME when in a time when we needed it most. We're going to be relaunching, and I think really bringing some great stuff to the customer. So we have just completed a time of going from, barely surviving to really thriving now, and we should all be very, very proud of that. So where do we go now? We've got to drive. Okay, this is a time for growth. And we're all facing the same challenges. I know you guys have spent a lot of time about this. Where are the people going to come from? What happens if Bed Bath & Beyond real estate department really starts to, double clutch downshift and all of a sudden throws 20 or 30 stores at us? Are we ready to open 20 or 30 stores? I mean, let's look at each other. Yeah, Right? That's kind of like one of those OS moments. Well, we're faced with that too. back in the office. And, you've heard a little bit that, it's manual, it's manual, it's manual. The reason why all of us are getting, gray hair is because we are operating on about 25% less analysts than we had before we had to do the RIF a few years ago. We do not have a new system. We've gotten everything that we've gotten so far out of the existing system. So we have to gear up for people, because anything that's manual is more work for people to do, and there are 12 people, I think, handling everything for the company, okay? Now, the good news is that we are starting a process of trying to get a new allocation replenishment system, I'm looking at Cliff, online, hopefully in 12 months, okay? That is a fast track, but we're gonna do everything we can humanly possible do. Because all of these other things that are coming online, be it the store within store, the other little capsules that we're putting into Harmon, we may be putting some into Bed Bath. We have leverage buys in both Bed Bath and also in Christmas Tree. That is all being handled manually right now, offline, out of our regular system by the team. Okay. And I will say it, when I say no to stuff, it's because it's a not now, just not now. Okay. They're great ideas. There is no time that I love more than right now, because I love opening up new stores, and as most of you know, I'm just a bit competitive. But, we got to get through our Christmas, because our Christmas is what really counts out there, okay? In fact, Robert and I were kind of tallying up. We've got well over half of our allocation team right now new in their chairs as we head into Christmas. So if we're doing anything offline, there's a great chance to screw it up, and I don't want to screw it up, because then you guys pay the toll, okay? So just as soon as we're ready, trust me, I'm going to be all over you guys, just driving the heck out of this business. Product, okay, I'm going to put on my sourcing hat for a minute. Our vendors, the vast majority of our vendors, are not ready for the kind of growth that we're talking about. We have prided ourselves in going deep into country and looking for the handicrafts, and sometimes it's a little too crafty in our handicrafts, as Kim kind of reviewed with our furniture, right? But a lot of these guys, if we're looking at 500 doors or even a 50% increase in door count in a few years in e-com business, they're not ready. So we are actively going out and making sure that not only our existing vendors can grow with us, but that we have new resources as well. Because if I had to do it today, we don't have the full breadth, especially in our handicrafts, which is the stuff that makes us different. That is the heart and soul of our company. We're not ready yet. So, like I said, we need probably 9 to 12 months to really gear up, and then, just watch the barn doors, because we're coming into the Northeast. We're going to come in hard, and Pier 1's not going to know what knocked them upside the head. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up today. What is our mission? To buy and sell goods profitably. It hasn't changed for the last 5-6 years. It's not going to change now. The great thing is, we're not going to lose the company, but what we can do is to continue to run our own unique brand, very different than anything else in the corporation, maintain our independence, and really show them how we do it out here. So, great job, guys. Let's go and finish up this year.